One October afternoon, 15-year-old Abigail Hernandez left school as usual but never made it home. A new pair of hiking boots caused her pain, slowing her down, just as a stranger pulled up in a car. What seemed like a harmless offer for a ride became the beginning of a nightmare that would last nearly a year. During those 9 long months, her family and the police had only one clue: a handwritten letter filled with contradictions. But the truth was hidden behind the sealed door of a soundproof container where Abigail was held, controlled, and subjected to relentless psychological torment. Welcome to Crime Investigation. Today, we explore a case full of shocking twists and chilling turns, the case of Abigail Hernandez. Abigail Hernandez, commonly known as Abby, was born on October 12, 1998 in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. She was the second child of her parents, Rubens Hernandez and Xenia. The family enjoyed many happy years together before Abigail's parents eventually divorced. After the separation, Abigail and her older sister, Sarah, moved in with their mother, who worked as a nurse. From a young age, Abigail displayed many positive traits. Those who knew her described her as kind, curious, cheerful, and adventurous. She initially explored the world of robotics and later began learning German. Abigail's true passion was hiking, unsurprising, given that she lived in North Conway and its surrounding areas, one of the premier destinations for hiking and rock climbing in the northeastern United States. The beautiful local landscape continues to attract many tourists who enjoy long walks and outdoor adventures. Abigail's high school classmates remember her as someone special who could connect with almost anyone. This natural ability made it easy for her to form friendships. In 2013, after a busy summer, Abigail returned to school and managed to balance her daily routine with extracurricular activities, which she truly enjoyed. At the time, she was in a relationship with her boyfriend, Jimmy Campbell, and spent most of her free time with him. Overall, Abigail lived a typical life in a beautiful and safe community with a low crime rate, which made her and her loved ones feel secure both at home and outside. Everything changed dramatically when a man named Nathaniel entered her life. Nathaniel Kibbe, known as Nate, lived about 50 kilometers away from Conway and Gorham, New Hampshire. He was born on July 15, 1980, and little is known about his family or early years. According to some sources, he attended the same school as Abigail, though many years earlier, meaning their paths never crossed. During his school years, Nathaniel's classmates described him as aggressive and cruel. Reports suggest he kept a list of names of potential future victims, mainly fellow students. He also frequently claimed to be a member of a gang called the Vipers and was generally seen as someone not to be messed with. As Nathaniel got older, he appeared to change on the surface. He worked at a company specializing in mechanical processing and manufacturing. Those who knew him during that time saw him as disciplined, and his colleagues and supervisors considered him an exemplary employee. They were unaware of his dark past. Previously, Nathaniel had attempted to abduct a 16-year-old girl who was trying to board a school bus. He also had several run-ins with law enforcement due to possession of banned substances. Furthermore, he was involved in multiple firearm-related incidents and was often caught lying when trying to purchase weapons from specialty shops. This is only a glimpse into his disturbing history. Some reports claim that Nathaniel lived with a 13-year-old girl for several months, claiming she was his girlfriend and openly acknowledging the inappropriateness of their relationship. In reality, such a relationship between an adult and a minor constitutes a serious crime. Nathaniel's neighbors in the trailer park kept their distance, While they didn't view him as an immediate threat, they also didn't trust him due to his suspicious behavior. On October 9th, 2013, Abigail left school and, as usual, went for a walk. Unfortunately, one of her birthday gift's new hiking boots she had planned to wear for her 15th birthday caused her discomfort. The boots rubbed against her feet, creating painful blisters that made walking difficult. Still, she continued on her way, trying to distract herself from the pain by enjoying the scenery and thinking about the upcoming holiday. Later, her boyfriend Jimmy texted her again to express his love. Abigail responded with a heart emoji. Abigail's school wasn't far from her home, but that day, her usual walk became long and painful due to the chafing from her new shoes. She had to concentrate on every step, trying to place her feet gently on the ground. So when she heard a car approaching, a wave of fear washed over her. The driver was Nathaniel. He appeared unusually friendly and welcoming, offering Abigail a ride. She politely declined, as she didn't know him. Nathaniel persisted, clearly noticing her discomfort. When she explained that her new hiking boots had given her blisters, he warned that continuing to walk would only make it worse. His reasoning made Abigail hesitate. Then, without waiting for a firm answer, he opened the passenger door. Reluctantly, Abigail got into the car. As Nathaniel started driving, he began asking her casual questions. At first, nothing seemed particularly alarming to Abigail. But then he mentioned that he needed to stop at a hardware store to pick up a few items for his house. He pulled into the parking lot of a large store and parked in a secluded area far from the entrance. By this point, Abigail was feeling increasingly uneasy. Still, she tried to remain calm and act normal. She told Nathaniel that her house was close enough for her to walk the rest of the way. Instead of respecting her request, he insisted again that he would drive her home. Just as they had agreed, tension filled the air. Sensing danger, Abigail quietly unbuckled her seatbelt and prepared to leave the car. But Nathaniel reacted quickly and violently. He grabbed her shirt with one hand and, with the other, pulled a weapon from the glove compartment, aiming it directly at her. In an instant, everything changed. Abigail realized she was in real danger. Nathaniel kept the weapon trained on her and threatened to hurt her if she didn't comply. Feeling utterly trapped, Abigail knew that her only chance of survival was to remain calm and obey. A few minutes later, Nathaniel placed a large baseball cap on Abigail's head and bound her hands with tourniquets. He restarted the car and drove off. Along the way, Abigail kept trying to observe the road, tilting her head so the cap wouldn't block her view. Nathaniel noticed this and, furious, used a stun weapon on her, rendering her unconscious. When Abigail regained consciousness, she found herself in a small, dark room with no windows. The only visible item was a poster on the wall depicting a snake and the words, "Don't step on me." Moments later, Nathaniel returned. He blindfolded her with tape, tied her hands with plastic zip ties, and placed a motorcycle helmet over her head. Once he had ensured she was completely restrained and helpless, he removed her clothes and sexually assaulted her for the first time. From that day forward, Nathaniel kept Abigail captive, unleashing his darkest urges and subjecting her to repeated abuse. He regularly threatened to harm her family and friends if she tried to escape or told anyone about her ordeal. Normally, Abigail returned home by dinner time. So when 7:00 p.m. came and she still hadn't arrived, her mother, Xenia, grew increasingly worried. She asked her older daughter, Sarah, whether Abigail had mentioned any plans to go out. Unfortunately, Sarah had no information to offer. Xenia then tried calling Abigail, but her phone was turned off. With rising panic, she contacted the police to report her daughter missing. Law enforcement immediately activated the missing child search protocol. Meanwhile, Xenia and Sarah reached out to Abigail's friends, hoping someone might know her whereabouts. Sadly, no one had seen or heard from her. All leads came up empty. Only Nathaniel knew where she was. Nathaniel, fully aware that mobile phones could be tracked, had smashed Abigail's phone almost immediately. While the local authorities and her loved ones were desperately searching for her, pursuing every theory they could imagine, Abigail remained trapped in Nathaniel's control, hidden from the world. When Nathaniel spent time with the victim, he often turned the music up to full volume so that no one could hear her screams. Physical aggression was a regular part of his behavior. Nathaniel used various tactics to intimidate Abigail and keep her under his control. For instance, he frequently told her that if she behaved well, he wouldn't harm her too much. At the same time, he warned without hesitation that he would kill her and even her family if necessary. Trapped and terrified, Abigail could only pray. She repeated to herself over and over that she needed to stay calm and analyze her situation. She focused on a single goal, doing everything in her power to survive. Abigail believed that the best strategy might be to get closer to her captor. Despite the bullying and abuse, she tried to lower his guard whenever possible. She spoke to him calmly, insisting that she didn't judge his actions. She told him that everyone makes mistakes, and even promised to stay quiet about the ordeal if he let her go. All her efforts to reach Nathaniel failed. If anything, her attempts to humanize him only seemed to make him more cruel. The room where Nathaniel held Abigail was nearly soundproof, resembling a modernized cargo container. It had no windows, cutting her off completely from the outside world. To further isolate her, Nathaniel put up a sign on the front door that read, "Strangers, entry is prohibited." While some neighbors found it strange, they didn't give it much thought. Nathaniel had always been viewed as odd, and it was his property after all. During her captivity, he acted out his disturbing desires, subjecting Abigail to various forms of physical and psychological manipulation. Still, despite the horrors she endured, Abigail clung to hope. She remained determined and focused on her survival strategy. Gradually, she began to see small signs of progress. At one point, Nathaniel even allowed her to stay in his trailer, a shift that marked a change in their relationship dynamic. Meanwhile, in Conway, posters about Abigail's disappearance were plastered everywhere. Despite the ongoing efforts of the local authorities, there were no significant leads. The search proved to be extremely difficult. Abigail's case sparked major public concern, and many people followed its developments closely. Her relatives were at a loss, though still determined to find her. Their hope was slowly fading. Both Nathaniel and Abigail followed the news coverage about her disappearance, which aired frequently on TV. This media attention gave Abigail a fragile sense of hope. But for Nathaniel, it triggered growing anxiety. The number of posters with her image continued to increase. News reports regularly displayed her description and shared contact numbers for tips. The search for Abigail had become one of the largest in New Hampshire's history. And all the while, Abigail remained trapped in her ongoing nightmare. As the search intensified, investigators still lacked a meaningful lead. Authorities had already questioned Jimmy, thinking he might have information about her disappearance. He fully cooperated and provided a verified alibi. A month passed. Abigail's mother, Xenia, was beginning to lose hope. She hadn't checked the mailbox in weeks, but when she finally sorted through the stack of letters, she found one from Abigail. It was dated October 22nd, 2013. The letter read, approximately, "Dear Mom, I miss you and love you more than you can imagine. I'm sorry about everything that's happened. I've seen the news reports. To answer your questions, I want you to know that I am alive, well, and safe. Even though I miss you deeply, I can't share my location right now. Please stay strong for me, just as I am staying strong for you. I've realized that patience, hope, and courage can make a difference. Don't lose hope. Keep moving forward and remember me. I believe everything will work out for us. I love you. Please give Sarah a hug for me and tell her I love and miss her very much." The authorities carefully analyzed the letter, hoping to find even the slightest clue that could lead them to Abigail. Unfortunately, they found nothing of value. All they could confirm was that the letter was indeed written by Abigail. Her handwriting was unmistakable. What they didn't realize was that the letter had been Nathaniel's idea. He believed it would stall the investigation, or perhaps even bring it to a halt. In fact, this wasn't the first letter Abigail had written. In an earlier attempt, she had embedded a secret message by pressing her fingernails into the paper, hoping someone would notice the faint impressions asking for help. But Nathaniel discovered her attempt and punished her severely. After that, he forced her to write the carefully worded letter that Xenia eventually received. For a time, the letter's contents were kept confidential, but soon, rumors began to circulate in the media. Some outlets speculated that Abigail had willingly run away from home, possibly because she was pregnant. As a result, nearly everyone in the city, especially her classmates, started discussing the supposed escape. Abigail's best friend later spoke out, expressing her outrage at the theory. She firmly believed that Abigail wasn't pregnant and insisted that her friend would never run away from challenges. Both Abigail's family and the investigators remained convinced that she was in serious danger. 6 weeks after her daughter's disappearance, Xenia addressed the media, hoping her words might reach Abigail and inspire her to stay strong. She said, I know that hope is stronger than fear. I hope one day you can reach out to me. I feel your presence in my life every day, and I wish for your safe return home as soon as possible." Unfortunately, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with law enforcement still no closer to solving the case. They had gathered enough evidence to conclude that Abigail was being held against her will. Meanwhile, the relationship between Abigail and Nathaniel began to shift. Slowly, she managed to earn a degree of his trust. At one point, Nathaniel even involved her in one of his illegal activities, producing counterfeit banknotes. Despite this trust, Abigail continued to suffer physical abuse and verbal insults. Months passed, and the investigation produced no significant breakthroughs. Xenia and Sarah were left in a state of ongoing sorrow and despair. At Nathaniel's home, life carried on with a disturbing sense of normalcy. Despite her prolonged captivity, Abigail still didn't know her abductor's real identity. She referred to him only as the owner. Nathaniel often behaved unpredictably, shifting between brief moments of calm and cruel outbursts. Recently, there had been more peaceful interactions, leading Abigail to wonder whether he might be softening. But that illusion was shattered when Nathaniel placed a homemade collar around her neck and activated it, delivering a powerful electric shock. When she regained consciousness, he warned her that any attempt to escape would result in further punishment. By mid-January 2014, Abigail had been held captive for more than 6 months. Though their relationship seemed to evolve, she remained at a clear disadvantage, and Nathaniel continued trying to maintain control. Around this time, a small but critical shift occurred. Nathaniel began allowing Abigail to read and even gave her a few books. This turned out to be one of his first mistakes. One of the cookbooks had his full name printed on the cover, and Abigail took note. When she later addressed him by name, Nathaniel was visibly shocked and asked how she knew. Abigail calmly explained that she had seen it on the book's cover. Her honesty was part of a strategy to maintain a fragile connection with her captor and increase the chances of survival. Deep down, she still hoped Nathaniel might eventually release her, or that someone would find her. Abigail had spent many long months locked inside a soundproof container, but she was now closer to freedom than ever before. Ironically, her potential rescue didn't come from anything she had done, but from a twist of fate. Nathaniel was involved in a minor traffic accident. Fearing that the police might soon come knocking, he preemptively contacted the nearest station and offered to cooperate. When officers arrived at his home, they discovered a massive stockpile of firearms of various calibers. In that moment, Nathaniel voluntarily surrendered the weapons to authorities. He allowed the police to search his trailer multiple times, again and again. Officers went in and out, passing just a few meters from the container where Abigail was being held. But due to Nathaniel's cooperative behavior, suspicion never fell on him, and Abigail remained a captive. Despite Abigail having been missing for a long time, her family and law enforcement continued their search, holding on to hope that she was still alive. Nathaniel appeared unfazed by the situation. He would leave his house during the day and return in the evening without showing any concern that Abigail might try to escape. Some of Nathaniel's actions eventually changed everything. He met a woman, and the two became intimate. During a conversation, she confided that she was struggling financially and couldn't afford her rent, wanting to help. Nathaniel gave her some money. Later, while shopping at a supermarket, she was shocked when the cashier informed her that the $50 bill she used was counterfeit. Embarrassed and alarmed, she left the store quickly without completing her purchase. Once home, she called Nathaniel and angrily confronted him. She also warned him to get rid of any counterfeit money he had, as she believed the police might soon come to investigate. Unbeknownst to her, that call had major consequences for Abigail. Nathaniel panicked. Though worried about being caught for counterfeiting, he was far more terrified of being exposed for Abigail's abduction and the crimes he had committed against her. On July 20th, 2014, fearing he would be caught, Nathaniel returned nearly all of Abigail's belongings. He then placed her in the passenger seat of his car and made her wear the same baseball cap she had worn on the day of her abduction. After driving for several hours, he pulled over and ordered Abigail to get out. Before letting her go, he issued one final threat if she told anyone what had happened or reported him to the police. He would return and cause pain and suffering to her loved ones. That was how Abigail found her freedom. Later, Abigail recalled that she couldn't tell if she was dreaming or awake. But once she regained her senses, she began walking toward a nearby house. For a long while, as she walked, she couldn't quite believe she was free. After enduring 9 months of captivity and trauma, she was finally on her way home. As she neared her house, she heard her mother's voice. Xenia was on the phone, speaking to someone. When Abigail stepped inside and called out, "Mom!" Xenia was overwhelmed with disbelief. She was so shocked to hear her daughter's voice after so many months that she asked for confirmation, unsure if it was really her. Later that evening, Xenia urged Abigail to tell her everything. But Nathaniel's threats quickly resurfaced in Abigail's mind. She avoided mentioning details about her kidnapper's identity. After some discussion, Abigail and Xenia decided to contact the police. During the interview, Abigail once again withheld the name of her abductor, terrified that he might return and hurt her family. As word of her return spread, the entire community was shaken and relieved. After coming back from the police station, Abigail took a long bath and then lay down in her own bed. It still felt unreal, but the horrifying memories flooding her mind reminded her that it had all happened. For the first time in many months, she was able to relax, truly feeling safe. The next day felt just as strange. On one hand, she longed to return to normal life and enjoy the activities she had once loved. On the other, she remained haunted by fear and anxiety, constantly worrying that Nathaniel might come back. In the days that followed, Abigail continued to struggle with this emotional tug-of-war. Though she was technically free, the feeling of liberation was still incomplete. Perhaps that's why. On July 27, 2014, Abigail could no longer bear the burden and confessed to her mother that she had deliberately withheld information about the man who had kidnapped her. She suggested they return to the police, and together, they did. The officers welcomed Abigail's new statement, which proved to be a turning point in the investigation. Once Abigail revealed everything she knew about Nathaniel, the authorities quickly began preparing an operation to arrest him. The next day, police surrounded Nathaniel's trailer and ordered him to surrender. To their surprise, he did not resist arrest. Afterward, Nathaniel was taken to the station for questioning, while investigators conducted a thorough search of his home. They left no corner unchecked, collecting every piece of evidence that could be connected to Abigail's captivity. During interrogation, Nathaniel requested a lawyer and denied any involvement in the crimes he was accused of. A preliminary hearing took place the very next day, and over the following weeks, he appeared in court multiple times as prosecutors presented mounting evidence. By that point, it was clear he was responsible for the horrifying ordeal Abigail had endured. On August 12, 2014, Nathaniel's lawyers filed a motion for his release. Unexpectedly, a judge in Kona approved it. Nathaniel was placed under strict conditions. He was forbidden from contacting Abigail or her family and required to stay at least 100 meters away from them. The trial began in mid-December 2014. Abigail and her family sat in the front row at the prosecutor's table, watching closely as the defense presented its arguments. At that time, Nathaniel was being held at the Carroll County Correctional Facility, facing over 180 charges related to Abigail's case. The next court hearing took place on May 26, 2016, nearly 2 years after Nathaniel's arrest. By then, he had accepted a plea deal and was prepared to admit guilt, a move intended to avoid a lengthy trial and secure certain legal advantages. One of the most emotional moments came when Abigail gave her final statement. She shared that she had resumed her education, rejoined her social circles, and returned to her favorite sports. Then she turned to Nathaniel and said that, although he had been a true monster in her life, she chose to see him as a man who had made a terrible choice. It seemed Abigail wanted him to understand that she had chosen to forgive him. Continuing her speech, Abigail expressed regret that things hadn't turned out differently, but emphasized that her family's safety was her top priority. She reminded the court that she wasn't the one who sent Nathaniel to prison. He had done that to himself by choosing to keep her captive. It was his decision alone. She concluded by thanking Nathaniel not for what he had done, but for what she had learned from the experience. She said it taught her to cherish her life and freedom more than ever. Then Xenia, Abigail's mother, spoke directly to Nathaniel. She told him that while a part of her soul truly hated him, she also wanted to thank him for not taking her daughter's life. Following their statements, Nathaniel Kibbe pleaded guilty to 7 felony charges, including kidnapping and abuse. He was sentenced to 45 to 90 years in prison. In the aftermath of the trial, Abigail slowly rebuilt her life. A few years later, she moved to a new county, started a family, and gave birth to a child. In an interview, she reflected on her time in captivity, saying that during those 9 months, she was determined to survive. She also shared that forgiveness played a vital role in her healing. In her words, "Forgiveness was the best revenge I could have had.